Now we're live.
Oh, now we are live. You got me mid swallow. Wow. What's up, wrestling fans?
Thank you and good night.
Ah,
it,
man.
it's the Two Bros Wrestling Show, or maybe one and a half bros. I'm not quite sure.
Let me
Tonight
just
our
say,
main event topic is Elimination Chamber, and last week we eliminated you, Doug.
dude, let me tell you, flu A, it is no joke. No joke. Oh, it's
Not
it's
a
still
joke.
lingering. Still lingering, and I'm just gonna set this over here. I'm gonna be slightly more discombobulated than normal tonight, but just because I'm still medicated and not fully back to 100%, but I'm here for you fine folks. And just really bright.
And we're happy to have you back. Although I have to say, kudos
There we
to
go.
my wife who filled in last minute on the Two Bros
Thank you,
Wrestling Show
Jerry.
last week. Did a great job. But now, Doug, you're going to be back in the hot seat. We'll not make it too difficult on you because you didn't have to make predictions last week that you had to live up to. I had to make predictions, and so tonight we'll review everything with Elimination Chamber, including how it situates things on the road to WrestleMania. But Doug,
Yes,
I know
sir.
you missed the week, but you know how we do.
Oh yeah, let's do it. There we go.
Opening bell time. Tonight's news, we're going to start with a little bit of history. WWE made history. Last week's SmackDown was the highest rated show on network television for the entire week. It's a first in the history of pro wrestling, which has been on and off network TV since 1947. It's only possible,
Wow.
of course, because the Daytona 500 was postponed due to weather. That was supposed to be last Saturday. Because it ended up being Monday, that would have surely been the most watched thing on network TV. Still, regardless, it's an accomplishment, even in these days of declining network ratings, and even with SmackDown preparing to leave that network come October when they move from Fox to USA. But kudos to everyone involved.
You mean it had nothing to do with The Rock? What? that can't be right. He's saving
Right.
the WWE.
Actually, the ratings with him on last Friday's edition was strong. It was nearing 6 million people, which for network TV
Wow.
these days, obviously pretty darn good.
Remember when 6 million was a bad draw for Raw in the heyday of the oh gosh, Attitude Era?
Well, and that's where I'm saying, like, it says as much about where we are in network TV as it is an accomplishment for SmackDown, because I really don't want to take away from what they accomplished.
Right.
But it's Friday night on network TV, and that's the highest rated show on all the networks for the entire week. Now, it should be pointed out that it wasn't the highest watched show on all of TV. It was like third or something like that, but that's just how far the networks have tumbled.
Right.
And yeah, these days 6 million, a great number for anybody, much less wrestling. But you're right, go back to the Attitude Era and those numbers would have been looked at a little differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Strange.
Moving on, after nearly 20 years, New Japan Pro Wrestling is now officially without Kazuchika Okada. We've been reporting on his pending free agency for a while now, and then this weekend, Okada said his goodbyes officially. At the final show of the New Beginning Tour, Okada was in a multi-person tag match where he got the pin in what is, at least for now, his final match in New Japan. Fun side note, Matt Riddle was a part of the opposing team.
Bro.
At the end of the night, after the main event where Tetsuya Naito retained his world championship, Naito had an in-ring angle with Okada that allowed the star to shine one last time and have the crowd say their goodbyes to him. Now we just have to wait and see where he shows up.
Pretty sure AEW is starting to look a lot like New Japan. Or is Tamatanga going there too?
There is definitely a pipeline. Of course, WWE has shown interest in Okada too, and even though all reports seem to be that he's leaning more AEW's way, I wouldn't count Triple H out, especially with the amount of money that the E can offer.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Okada's ever wanted a WrestleMania moment, but that would be.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
he
think that
has.
would be
He's
that. Well, that would be what brings him to the WWE. Then
on record. It is he has in interviews said that is something that he would like on his resume bucket list before he's done getting
well,
to be on WrestleMania. Only
well,
one company can offer that.
there you go. Only one company can offer that. That's so true. And I'm sure Shinsuke could talk him into saying, "Look, dude, I show up here. This is what I do. It ain't much, but it's not what I'm capable of. But I don't have to work that hard anymore, and I get paid the same either way. Hold
And to Triple
on.
H's credit,
Sorry.
Shinsuke has been positioned a lot stronger over the last
So much.
year or
Yeah.
so. And there has been reports that was specifically for the benefit of someone on the other side of the ocean watching to say, look, we know what to do with Japanese talent, especially now that the old man is gone.
Exactly. Yeah, we've got, the Kabuki Warriors and the rest of Damage Control. So look what we can do with these folks.
Speaking of people who are gone, I know you weren't with us, Doug, last week, but last week we talked about Scott D'Amore being let go as president of TNA Wrestling and replaced by a non-wrestling exec already in the Anthem management team. Well, this week comes word that D'Amore's duties were not just his role as president, but we've divided things up because he also was head of creative. The non-wrestling guy, thank goodness, is not going to try to take that over. But that part of what D'Amore did is being handed to someone who very much has a wrestling mind. Actually, one could say he has an innovative wrestling mind. Come on.
Tommy Dreamer.
You,
You so did. I did not realize, but I guess that's why Tommy was on the call and directly addressed talent right afterwards. Then after Anthem said, "Hey, we're getting rid of D'Amore. D'Amore's gone, and here's this guy from Anthem. He's going to be running the show." But Tommy was kind of like that talent relations person, so that makes sense.
He very much is. Tommy Dreamer has been in the TNA creative room since 2019, and now is going to be heading things up. Honestly, and this, I know you weren't able to participate in the discussion last week, Doug, but I was telling everyone out there that D'Amore is really given a lot of credit for rehabbing the TNA product. Like there's a lot of momentum and enthusiasm of the young roster of men and women feeling like they're really accomplishing something, and you just don't want to see all that lost. So hopefully, between your Eric Youngs and your Tommy Dreamers and folks that are well respected in that locker room, they can keep it going. When I have had a chance over the last 6-7 months, I don't get the show. I can't watch regularly, but when I have seen it, it has been extremely good. I've been very impressed. So hopefully they can keep that up.
Yeah, did you see EY? What did they have a pay-per-view this weekend too? No Surrender.
Yes.
Okay. Did you see EY's like pre?
I read about it. Yeah.
Okay. I've seen it. We'll talk about it later tonight.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
So stick around.
Stick around for this. The Rock $7 production company is producing a biopic on 16-time world champion Ric Flair. The Rock dropped this nugget on X talking about Flair being one of his heroes. Not much information is known beyond that. No idea what period of Flair's interesting life this movie will cover, but I think I can speak for Doug when I say take our money now. Just go ahead.
Please do.
Take our money.
Take our money.
You can throw a dart, Doug, at the lifeline of Ric Flair, and wherever it lands, it's going to be an interesting movie, whatever you choose to focus on.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it'll be a more upbeat. I know Flair has had his series of lows, but I see it being a much more upbeat. And don't get me wrong, Iron Claw is an amazing movie, but my goodness, I know
there's no upbeat.
That I know that's an entire show for the future, but my goodness, such a heavy movie. Because I've had a lot of time to watch, wrestling stuff over the past week while I've just been laying on the couch.
There's more foreshadowing. Stick to the end of the show, and you'll get to hear more about Iron Claw as well. El Hijo del Vikingo. Doug.
Is he hurt again? Did he hurt? Man,
What may be a very serious knee injury during a recent event in Mexico. The match Vikingo was in had to be stopped. It's since been reported it's a torn meniscus. The amount of time that he is going to be off will be dependent on if he needs surgery or if he can recover with just PT. Vikingo is the current AAA mega champion and has held that championship for more than 800 days, making him the longest reigning champ in that title's history. He's managed all of this despite a rough spell during that 800 days with injuries, including a significant hipping injury in Ring of Honor late last year after a dive went wrong. And that injury was only a month after Vikingo collapsed after a match down in AAA. So please take the time to heal up, Vikingo. The Two Bros Wrestling Show want to see you on our TVs and have a long, successful career.
like a Ric Flair kind of long, successful career. Not a, no.
I love watching him and I love the style, but I can't say that you're going to burn bright and quick if you're not careful.
I think you have to, if you're going to work that style, you need to work it young while your body can take that. And then by the time, you're still young, when you say hit 30, you modify that. You have to modify. Otherwise your body's just not going to be able to take that.
Well, on the topic of injuries, it seems we've reported way too many ACL injuries to female performers here recently, but sadly we have another. If you watched this week's NXT, you saw that uncomfortable moment where Shotzi Blackheart was pulled from the main event mid-match. Shotzi was wrestling NXT champ Valkyria when what looked to be just a simple drop down off the ring apron to the floor sent Shotzi to the ground, writhing in pain. During the picture-in-picture commercial break, Shotzi was removed from the match. Lyra made an open challenge that had Lash Legend, who had already wrestled earlier in the show, come out and finish the main event match. Shotzi later confirmed the injury, said she's going to miss the next 9 months as a result. But get well soon, Shotzi. It also goes to show, yes, I know we just said, hey, slow down, Vikingo, but this is a dangerous business. You don't have to be doing all the, insane triple flip jumps and she literally stepped down onto the floor and that's all it took. Just the wrong move the wrong way.
Shotzi does. It's not the Vikingo style, but she has a more aggressive style too. So I wonder if that's more not necessarily the years, but the miles on those knees.
It could be the miles, or it could be just that anything in this business, even what could be considered a simple move, has the potential.
Let's remember Vince McMahon did slide into a ring and somehow tear both his quads out somehow.
That may be my favorite injury of all time, especially considering that,
right.
It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Absolutely.
Here's an injury story you may have forgotten about. It's been nearly 2 years since Robert Roode has been in the ring. He's had 2 neck fusion surgeries, but apparently has been medically cleared to wrestle, unlike Doug. However, also, unlike Doug, Roode is not in any rush to get into the ring or get physical in any way. He's not even sure he'll ever have another match. The near 48-year-old said he's very happy in his current role working as a producer for WWE.
And I think it's interesting because I think it was Chris Van Vliet I saw him on this week, where I didn't realize that he's been working and been very active behind the scenes. I did not realize that. And I don't think a lot of people did that. He's a producer.
And go back again to what we were talking about earlier with that locker room with your Tommy Dreamers and your Eric Youngs, and Robert Roode was honed in TNA. Yes, we loved him in NXT. Never really, by the time he got to the main roster of WWE, it was kind of the end. But his wrestling mind was shaped at TNA Wrestling. And
absolutely.
I'm glad to know that he's backstage helping WWE out.
One of my favorite Four Horsemen ripoff stables, the Fortune 4. Was that there? Was that it? Throw up the 4. Good times. Good times.
Next, we have 2 separate stories concerning. It sort of ties into our main event topic tonight because we have 2 separate stories concerning 2 of the participants in the female Elimination Chamber match. First, Liv Morgan. The marijuana case against Liv Morgan is now closed. She was picked up by Florida police after reportedly driving erratically, a search of her car turned up the marijuana. She originally was charged with possession of a controlled substance, which is a felony, but prosecutors have decided not to pursue that. Instead, Morgan was allowed to plead no contest to a misdemeanor, pay her court costs, making the case now closed, allowing her to move on to Australia. Also, moving to Australia was Raquel Rodriguez, who had some issues that nearly kept her from competing in Australia. Raquel had just recently returned to action following her reveal that she suffers from mast cell activation syndrome, which I had not been familiar with until I had to look it up when she left the air several months ago. During this long flight, though, to Perth, Rodriguez had a flare-up that turned her skin this pinkish color, kept her from participating in practices that they were doing leading up to the chamber. Prior to that event, she gamely participated in yesterday's match, despite all of the roadblocks that she was facing. The announcers even acknowledged both her condition and her flare-up. Just kudos to Raquel for being such a trooper and powering through.
And really a good sport about it, because she is on social media. I'm not sure if you saw this, where she's making references to going into Elimination Chamber all Alicia Keys style, sans makeup.
Yes. You go, Raquel.
Right.
Be yourself. And no one in that crowd was disappointed at all. No. They were happy to see you. Someone that we didn't see, and this is, and then finally, wrapping up our opening bell segment, Elimination Chamber related also, and it's regarding Bronson Reed. Last week on our show, Jer asked me if I was surprised that Reed had lost his qualifying match and therefore wouldn't be appearing in his home country. Now we know a little bit more as to why that actually may be. Reed and his wife had been expecting a baby, and the baby came early. Okay. And with Reed, of course, opting to stay to be with his expanded family, understandable. Congratulations to Bronson and his wife.
Congratulations to the big boy.
With that, Doug, let's talk about those who actually were in Perth, Australia. We are here with our main event topic, the final stop on the road to WrestleMania, that being Elimination Chamber. Doug, I guess before we get into any spoilers, I will just say that for me, there was nothing wrong with this pay-per-view event, but I know when we did Royal Rumble, I said that it was good. Nothing stood out. It advanced the storylines. This was similar in that it's literally the pay-per-view of no surprises. And again, not getting into spoilers just yet, but
I think that's very much it. It's I don't want to call it predictable, but I think, no surprises definitely. Yeah. And steady,
nothing offensively bad.
A reliable pay-per-view, it make a good dad, I guess, but it's not.
Nothing that's going to blow you away,
right?
Nothing that's going to blow you away either. So I have a hard time rating this one because I don't want to say go out of your way to see it, because the atmosphere alone is worth seeing. An excited crowd in a market that doesn't get WWE, doesn't get pay-per-views. The Australian fans brought it. The everything looked great about it. But if you wanted to listen to our recap, I think that you would still be just as fine on your road to WrestleMania. There's not a whole lot you'd have to go out of your way to see. So this one's probably a thumbs in the middle for me. It's a skippable show, which you really wouldn't normally say, or I wouldn't normally say. I don't want to speak for you, Doug, but on the road to WrestleMania, I would think they're all must see.
Absolutely. I think WWE's in a very unique place that they've never really found themselves in before, though, with things going on with Vince, with things going on with The Rock. They planned to go one way, then had to pivot after a pivot. And and then they have this, 30 hours away from where they're normally touring and putting on shows. So
let's talk about that. So we'll get into spoilers now. So stop watching, come back if you actually don't want to know who won and who lost. We're going to get into the meat of this event. I want to start, though, right where you were heading there, Doug. Do you think that any of the lack of surprise or the just perfunctory parts of this pay-per-view have anything to do with its location. 5 a.m. in the morning is a hard sell. I think they probably knew it was a hard sell. Do you think they intentionally had a pay-per-view where not much has changed? You could probably just watch Raw and SmackDown and be just fine knowing where we are.
I think so, but I think too, I don't want to say they didn't have big plans for Perth. I think the biggest plans for Perth were, let's push Rhea. If Bronson had not had a child come early, there probably would have been some big spots for him as well. I don't think he's coming out winning any major titles or, getting a shot at any major titles, but at least he, there would have been like a good feeling moment for him too. However, it's weird that they've known about. It's not like, oh, by the way, we have to go to Australia next week. It's just been on the calendar forever, right? So I think.
Do you like this? I mean, as an American fan, I know that this is obviously the new strategy because this isn't Saudi Arabia or anything like that we have those moral reasons against. An international strategy makes sense. There's only so many old marks like us that are, the ceiling is there on how much you can grow in terms of wrestling fans of the United States. It makes sense to bring these things up. They're going to Germany, they're going to France, but those pay-per-views, like the Saudi pay-per-views, will be on in the afternoon here or early morning if you're on the West Coast. But you go clear to the other side of the world and you're either staying up to 2:00 in the morning to start, or you're getting up at 5 in the morning to start if you're on the East Coast. Does watching it on delay, and by the way, in the comments, any of you actually did that? If anybody woke up at 2 or 5 or what have you, let us know if you watched it live. I watched it on demand. And it's nice to be able to go to the restroom and pause, but it does, for me, lose a little bit when you're not watching live. You can just fast forward if you want. You could, pull up spoilers if you want. It did change things for me a bit. Doug,
it absolutely changes things. I don't sleep a lot, even though I've been sick. I end up sleeping during the day more than I do the night. Where I've been sick, but I was up at 5 in the morning on Saturday.
No joke.
I was up about 4:30 on Saturday, but I had forgotten that it was going to be on at that time, and when I realized it was on, it was like it was too deep into it, and I didn't want to go back and start from the beginning and then play catch up, and I definitely didn't want to just jump into it and go live. So I also watched it on demand later, but yeah, I think it's a convenience that we have, and in a global market, it's just kind of where we are now. And I'm going to say personally, I really love the other markets, where they go into, like Perth, like Puerto Rico. I'm really excited to see what they do in Germany, especially with Walter over there, Gunther.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I can't wait for that.
The Australian fans brought it, and the look, I mean, 50,000 plus. I think they announced 52 as the final crowd. I will say, and we'll get into it when we get into the second match on the show. But the sun setting over the city of Perth with the overshot of the stadium, absolutely gorgeous visual. So everything was brought by the Australian fans, and I guess we could say at the very least they did provide a lot of fan service. Let's kick that off with the kickoff show, which they actually had, which it's been a while since they've had a match on the kickoff show. But Indy Hartwell, another Aussie that we have yet to mention, she was in a tag team title match. The women's champions, the Kabuki Warriors, were taking on Indy and Candice LeRae. A nice "We Want Indy" chant broke out during this. A nice hot tag when she finally got in. Indy was really the only story of this match, though. It was, I mean, I don't know if you saw the kickoff or not, Doug, but it was just kind of there.
I didn't. But, I imagine like the rest of the pay-per-view, it was consistent and, what you say earlier, non-offensive, but, it's just kind of, I think it's beyond just kind of a meh pay-per-view, but still it's, and I'm sure this match was the same.
And most kickoff matches tend to not be much, and this one actually wasn't either, though it was nice to see Indy out there. Kabuki Warriors retain. We get to the main show proper, Doug. Cole and Graves are our announcers, which is kind of interesting. I guess Graves got to slip back into his color commentator role since he's now the voice of SmackDown. But as I predicted last week, as I kind of thought we would probably start with the women's chamber match, and we did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Raquel Rodriguez, Liv Morgan. You got Naomi, and then Tiffany Stratton were the women that participated here. Doug, for me, the pods looked a little bigger than they had in the past. Did you think so?
Yeah, two things that stuck out to me were the pods and the way the floor was set up. Not the floor in the ring, but the floor in the stadium where they had these huge like pies, slices of pizza that were just wide open. And I don't know if that has something to do with Australia.
Talking about the ring. It looked more like New Japan, how like if you ever watch like Wrestle Kingdom and some of their big stadium shows, they don't pack the floor the way that WWE does. Maybe it's some sort of regulations, but I noticed that too. It was odd to see so much space on the floor.
Right, because I was like, well, they could get so many more people in there.
With this one, we started with Naomi and Becky. I really liked the split that Naomi did from the cage down onto the floor of the chamber that surrounds the ring. Australia obviously watches NXT.
Yes,
because it was a very strong Tiffy chant, and it only grew once she came in. She was the first one out of her pod. And man, did she put on a show for the people or what?
She absolutely did, to the point where when she got eliminated, people were, booing.
They booed Liv Morgan, who they normally everyone loves little Liv.
Yeah, but yeah, I think for my 2 cents, I think Tiffany Stratton, kind of ran that gauntlet and made an impression. That was her time to shine, and she definitely took advantage.
Whether she was on offense or defense, that Beck-sploder that Becky put on her into the chamber wall, down onto the floor, one of the stiffest looking shots of the match. And then maybe the move of the night was Stratton's somersault flip off the top of the cage to the women on the outside. I mean, she was full on. Her head was headed towards the floor had she not made contact with those ladies. I mean, it was a risky spot, but she nailed it.
She nailed it and jumped without a care in the world. There's some real trust in your coworkers to that just such a leap of faith there to take those girls out like that and trust that they're going to catch her right, because girl went off like she was a cannonball. Looks so legit. It looked great. It really did.
Another move from the top I really liked was Naomi doing her neck breaker from the top of one of the pods. That looked great. Was a little surprised considering she had just came back at Royal Rumble to see Naomi be the first one actually eliminated. That was a bit of a surprise. Bianca was the last to enter. By that point, Naomi was already gone, which I thought was interesting choice. Bianca's KOD on Raquel was impressive strength, even though she barely got her over.
She did. You think she was? You think she was selling? Because there'd been a couple of times where she tried to take care of business and everything. Do you think it was, she's selling that barely getting it over, or do you think that's just where they were in the match?
I think that this watch the torque of Raquel's body and how she almost didn't make it all the way across. I'm thinking it was legit, but I've always said this. I don't have a problem with some rough looking spots to make it look more real. It shouldn't look so choreographed. Sometimes it does. I think sometimes when a spot doesn't go completely to plan, or you have to throw a little extra into it, it more mimics what a real fight actually looks like.
Right.
So I thought it looked really cool to see her almost not be able to get it over, because you know what? Raquel's a big, strong woman, and you're going to have a hard time getting her over. It looks real.
Yes.
This is the match where the sunset went over the stadium, the sunset during the women's match, and I thought it was fantastic. Looked great visual. The pace slowed a bit when we got to the final three, but there was a great role there for Liv to play the spoiler, because the two favorites were the the other two that remained, and then Liv eliminated Bianca, which was a bit surprising, in a great ending sequence where Liv then immediately gets pinned by Becky Lynch. That was my prediction. So this is one I can say, yeah, I'm right about, but I think that almost most folks would have said probably Becky and Bianca. So this was the first of the. This is kind of where we've been heading all along with Becky getting in Rhea's face, and but good match. I thought surprise, non-surprising victor, but the way they got there told a great story, and almost every woman got a chance to shine. There wasn't anything really out of this though that I can see for other matches. Maybe on the way to Mania. But we definitely, and not to spoil our main event, but we know one part of the women's equation with Becky, and that's just no one's surprise, really.
Yeah.
The obviously Chamber match, hard to follow. This next match was not a come down match at all. The Undisputed Tag Team Championship, the champions, the Judgment Day, pick up the victory against the New Catch Republic. And poor R-Truth missed it because he is, in Austria, which I thought was well done. Doug, I thought it was interesting to hear in this match Michael Cole talk about the history of pro wrestling in Australia. If that just doesn't let you know that that ding dong, the old man's gone,
right?
Talking about the history of pro wrestling, not sports entertainment,
and not WWE sports entertainment. But
there was a world that existed outside of what McMahon created. I loved that part. Also loved it when Tyler Bate showed that impressive strength, taking a really large man on his shoulders in an airplane spin on the huge Damian Priest. There was a bad botch, and I'm sure you probably saw this too, in what otherwise was a great match. Damian Priest was meant to be head scissored to go into his partner who was sitting atop the rope, Finn Balor. Instead, when the head scissors happened, Priest went straight down to the mat and chose to get up and then run on his own accord into Finn Balor. It looked pretty bad, to be perfectly honest with you.
Wrestling, still, wrestling. It's live.
Outside of that, quick pace, good match. I liked it. Probably the match of the night, honestly.
Good match. I really enjoyed it. I wish they had a better name, but at least we can call him Pete Dunne again instead of Butch. New Catch Republic.
So there's a tag team on NXT, and I'm not remembering the name now, but it's Drew Gulak's team with Charlie Dempsey, and just like 3-4 weeks ago, they named themselves the New Catch Club or something. It has catch in the title, and then I don't know if someone thought, let's steal that for these other technical wrestlers on the main brand, because I haven't heard it mentioned on NXT since, and now that we got the New Catch Republic. But hey, if it means that we're going to make them a solid, standing team,
sure,
I think they'd be an exciting addition to the tag division. This is one I actually got wrong. I thought if they tried to surprise us anywhere, it would be a low stakes surprise with the tag team championships. No offense to the tag team division, but that's kind of where WWE is right now with their tag team. I thought this might be the one, we'll pull a switch to give them something, but they didn't, which is fine.
Yeah, I kind of expected, of course I did, I can say this, it's already over, but I did kind of expect New Day to retain, because I think if New Day's going, not New Day, wow, the House of Purple.
You watched this year's Elimination Chamber, right, Doug?
It's confusing to have it by season and not year. I got confused.
Stay tuned for Doug's analysis of the main event where Shawn Michaels wins the world championship. Spoiler.
It was great. I can't believe it. He returns and then he wins. The boyhood dreams are true again.
Oh, man. Judgment Day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I forgot my point. Oh, Judgment Day will lose at WrestleMania to probably R-Truth and someone else, because the Truth will be able to get his comeuppance, because they're eventually going to be super mean to Truth, and
hey, we are here to try to say how this is going to affect Mania. So if you're calling this match as the stepping stone to a showdown with Truth, who do you think Truth picks as a partner? Anybody in your mind?
Oh man, I
Seems
don't
like it.
know. I don't. I would hate to see the awesome truth, be a thing again. I- but I don't really know who. But I mean, there's still what 40 some days. We got time to
Yeah.
book. We got time to build and book this. And I think we've been slow burning. It's now time we kick this into overdrive and be a little bit meaner to truth, and get those belts off of the New Day.
Well, talk about a slow burn. I think that is how I would call this next segment because I have to say I expected more. When I knew that they were doing a Grayson Waller effect in Australia, I thought this could actually be, though it's a segment, this could be the main event just because if we saw any storyline development for Mania outside of just who's going to win the chamber matches, it would be when you have Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes flying all the way to Australia for this. They made a big point to say The Rock's not going. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks thought that that was a red herring to like surprise the audience with Rock showing up. Surprise, The Rock didn't fly halfway around the
With
world.
Triple H going, yeah, no, don't look for it. It's for real, not
Yeah, he's
happening.
not happening. Roman ain't going. Rock ain't going. I actually thought that they might announce a WrestleMania match with Cody and Seth,
Mm-hmm.
teaming up, and we'll do Rock Roman night one. This was an odd segment. When it came on in the middle, I knew Rock isn't coming.
Right.
But then I also thought that by the end of it, I'm like, they didn't really advance much of anything. I mean, Cody, yes, he challenged The Rock, just blanket, no real when or where, just, we got time before Mania, me and you. And Seth goes, got you back, buddy. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Of course, there's also the bit where Cody said, there's mention of Cody giving up his spot to Rock, then saying, yeah, no, I'm going to do that. And then they completely drop it.
Yeah,
Like,
if they would have explored that, then that would have been a big storyline development. I'm like,
it's,
that's what I want to hear. Why
I
did you,
know.
for a second,
Yeah. I was like,
decide
what?
that I will step to the side? Let's go there. If you're going to go
Yeah.
there, like that was great, and
I
then
mean,
they dropped
and
it.
if you're not going to address it, why bring it up at all?
Yeah,
That's
and I almost
what are you
wonder if
doing?
someone hollered into his ear that
Yeah,
we
don't
don't.
talk about that.
Yeah, well, we've already twisted ourselves into a lot of pretzel knots with this one. Let's not give ourselves another one because
Right.
I was surprised when he even went there. By
Yes.
I thought they were just going to pretend that didn't happen, and then as soon as he said it, they went back to pretending that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess I mean sort of good work by all involved, but it seemed like kind of a nothing burger of a segment, to be honest. Nice to see Grayson Waller get the home country pop, and then of course do a good job of turning the home country against him as any good heel would.
As he did, yeah, as he does nothing for his BFF. I'm just gonna hang out back here. It's cool. You guys
Poor
do
Austin
you.
Theory. This time last year, he was heading towards a WrestleMania match with John Cena.
Yep.
And where is Austin Theory now, like storyline wise? I mean, he's playing second banana to Grayson
Grayson.
Waller, and I mean, and no offense because I like Grayson too, but it just seems like he was on the cusp last year and I don't know, maybe he was too close to Vince McMahon or
Maybe, yeah.
maybe that wasn't just a storyline angle. I don't know, but interesting. No real development there. Also interesting is this next match. The match that I said, well, we'll start with the Elimination Chamber. We'll end with an Elimination Chamber. I guess I should have thought about the fact that Rhea Ripley,
Rhea,
being from
yeah.
Australia, would headline, which on that basis I'm fine with. But that also means Nia Jax headlines, and Nia Jax is not a headliner. So were you surprised when you saw the chamber match come on when it did?
I definitely was, but there's also an acknowledgement of, oh, cool, they're giving Rhea the main event. I know there's the whole thing in WWE, just ask CM Punk about it, where there can be multiple main events, in a
Yeah.
night, which
But when you're last and you're standing tall, I get that part of it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
also knew, though, when this went on a little bit earlier, that it probably wasn't going to be set up to be a show stealer either.
Mm-mm. And I think this was another non-offensive match, and I mean, it's consistent, good. I want to say it's a step above like your TV work you're going to see, but
Oh, sure.
overall, you know,
But just the chamber, I'll always
Yeah.
have like the Elimination Chamber concept, but I just thought that these were not the. I would say I think the women's was a step or two. I would grade it above the
I
men's.
agree.
But you had KO, Bobby Lashley, Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, and LA Knight. Drew with the win here. Drew and Knight to start. I thought it was cool looking when KO was punching Drew through the plexiglass while Drew's head was also simultaneously being slammed into the plexiglass. That cracked me up for some reason. Paul was the last one in. At the point that Paul got in, unlike the women's match, there had been no elimination, so it was pretty crowded in there. Lashley got a spear of Paul that looked really, really good through the pod. Obviously, anytime you go through the plexiglass, I know it makes a lot of noise and it's probably not all that painful, but it still just looks like it would be extremely painful. Lashley was the first eliminated, Doug, and this was, for storyline purposes, important because we did an injury angle, which they seem to go to maybe too often, you could argue.
I agree.
In these
too
matches.
Often. Yeah, too often. I'm trying to find a list of TNA champions because I'm pretty sure most of them were in this Elimination Chamber match or showed up in it.
And no Lashley was for sure. And of course, as soon as he's down, and I'm watching with my wife, and I'm like, okay, they're not showing him. I hope he's not really hurt because I'm seeing refs come in. And then I see that now they are showing him, and that door's wide open. And of course, I knew at that point, like,
right.
It's the whole, this is how someone gets into the structure that's built to keep people out, yet everyone manages to get in.
Always. Yeah.
Always. AJ comes in and of course attacks LA Knight, which takes the most over person in the match out of the match. That's right. Just like the women's, Doug, I think it slowed down for me a bit when we got to the final three, which was fine because, the bang, bang, bang of entrances and all of that. And then you get this match sort of settled to the final three. I wasn't all that crazy, though, unlike with the women's match where I actually liked the way that they ended it. I wasn't so much fond of the Logan Paul breast knuckles spot.
Right. It's I don't want to say it's overused, but I think it's part of the Paul gimmick, I guess, but
yeah, it didn't work for me so much. And I think that's part of the reason why one of the reasons I rate this below the women's contest is because I just thought the ending was a little more flat. Drew McIntyre is your winner and will go on to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. But Drew was my prediction. And sometimes it's okay to, I think, not have a surprise. You don't have to just pull all the time like the rug out from under people because we want to shock them. Sometimes the storyline is going a certain way and you shouldn't fight going against the stream.
And they don't want to try and shake up anything else and have another more fan backlash and have to backpedal on things.
Do you think that they were in a bit of a bind on not having this pay-per-view between Rumble and Mania, but because of the CM Punk injury and because of the whole Rock Cody sort of mix up and how they treated him after Rumble? Do you think that they kind of put themselves in a corner as to, we have to get this straight and there's only so many ways we can go with it, so the obvious winners are going to be the ones that go out on top?
I think it's some recognition of, okay, we had these plans, we tried to pivot with this one and it went this way. So before we get sideways on anything else, let's just, step back, assess assess the room and figure out what people really want. And let's just do that. And let's just be safe right now because people are dropping like flies.
And again, I picked Drew for a reason, not just because storyline wise, he had been sort of facing that direction, but he's earned that spot. Like, he has been an amazing heel and an instigator, whether it's CM Punk or Seth or, Cody. I mean, whatever face he has been getting in the ear of, he has really chewed the scenery on any segment he has been in. And I mean, that whole, I prayed this would happen bit that he gave to CM Punk might have been one of the greatest things I've heard on wrestling this whole year. I'm happy for Drew, even though it's on the hillside. He'll get a WrestleMania moment that was deprived of him when he actually won that champion as a heel. So kudos to him.
I saw somebody today talking about Drew winning and talking about how he had turned heel essentially because he was so sick and tired of everybody else's interference in matches, yet he won the Elimination Chamber because of a little bit of interference.
A little bit of interference. And unlike the women's match, which really just set up Becky as the heir apparent for, again, sort of foreshadowed. Same for Drew, but we did get a few developments that made it a few other matches now for WrestleMania way more clear. Obviously, AJ coming in and attacking LA Knight. So we're not just getting Seth versus Drew. We're going to get AJ versus LA, which I think, the promos are going to be amazing. And that has a really good chance of being a sleeper match of the weekend with those two talent. So I'm not mad on that one at all. Then we're going to get an Orton Paul contest, it looks like, which
I'm liking that. Yeah,
that'll be interesting. But Doug, what do you think that means for KO, who never really got Paul out of the picture? This sort of ends KO's story with Logan Paul and seems like a pivot now to obviously you got a legend like Randy Orton coming back, give him a high profile match with the social media star. It makes sense. Right. I don't hate it, but I don't know that this makes for an obvious path for KO.
Well, it's obvious, Kevin. We have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal Memorial. KO's taking that now, dude. Taking that big giant trophy home with him.
You said earlier that the truth needs a partner. I know it probably will be Miz, but I wouldn't be mad if it was a.
Yes, that would be great.
But we'll see. For Kevin, it definitely means a step down, no matter what, from being in one of the main events last year to now not even having his Logan Paul contest, his Logan Paul feud end in a contest at Mania, which is for a while where I thought they were going. But obviously, we're going Randy now. And Doug, with that, we are to our main event, and what I should have guessed might have been the main event, but in my previews, I didn't at all think that this was going to be anything other than just a feel-good match. Rhea Ripley defending her women's championship against Nia Jax. So I guess let's first talk about the placement. I get it. It doesn't mean I like it or that I'd like to see Nia Jax in my main event. It was a serviceable main event only because of Nia Jax, but it was extremely cool to see Rhea get that kind of spotlight because I think is I mean, she was my female wrestler of the year when we did our 2023 award show, and to see her come home with the family there, it was definitely send the home crowd home.
Absolutely love the bit with the family ringside, Nia Jax being Nia Jax. I'm just and Rhea being Rhea. It was good. It was fun. All I'll say is, mommy is always on top, and there's a reason for that.
The story started with a bit of a methodical beatdown by the larger Jax, which, you don't think of with Rhea Ripley. It's unusual. She's in there with somebody larger than her. So that's the typical wrestling setup, big person beats down little person comes back.
Right. The hope spots.
And the hope spot. I will give Jax credit. I mean, she played that part well enough. And then the Samoan drop that she did from the middle turnbuckle actually was some of the more impressive offense that I have seen of Nia. The table spot where the table didn't break, that looked pretty painful because her head was right there with that monitor. And I'm like,
well, that's the thing too, man. Cause I was going to bring that up. Those monitors, at first I thought they were iPads, and then I realized they're not iPads. They're thicker monitors, but they're still small monitors, not those big giant, like cathode tube things like back in the day that you see the wrestlers taking out of the table and everything, but still, you clear those off before you lay a person down on that table, before you throw a person down on that table. You don't throw a person down on those monitors, first of all. And then to showcase what a terribly sloppy worker you are, you don't get up on a wobbly chair like I'm sitting in here with wheels on it, where you are a very large person.
I saw that too, man. I
like,
thought
what
for
are you?
sure she's just going to tumble over.
I was like, you are just an OSHA
But it
trip.
worked out.
Yeah, it
It
worked
worked
out,
out.
but
I mean, unfortunately, Rhea got out of there not only with the victory and the hometown or home country adulation, she got out of there uninjured,
uninjured.
and it was serviceable, but again, not normal pay-per-view main event quality, and that is not on Rhea at all.
Not at
Cool
all.
visuals at the end. Doug, Mania implications here. Now we have it sort of codified, even though we knew this is where it needed to go. It was either going to be Powerhouse versus Powerhouse, Rhea versus Bianca, or the more likely scenario, because of all the press conference and the smack talk and everything else that shows they were leading towards Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Kind of a fresh match and two really talented female performers. I like that contest for Mania.
I'm digging it. I am digging
Where
it.
does this lead Jade Cargill? Off of Mania?
Absolutely off of Mania. She didn't make it to the Elimination Chamber, which says to me that they still have doubts about her ability to execute a full match, be ready for something that's not like a Goldberg style match. So last reports I'd heard is that she has a lot of difficulty memorizing so many different things that are going to happen within the match. There's still a lot of trouble with that. So you either do those short Goldberg matches, which, I guess looking back at it, Tony Khan did her absolutely no favors by protecting her like he did and having her just in these bigger squash matches through her entire Goldberg-esque run. But this is where she is now. So I mean, she's got the look, she's got the charisma. I hope she can, nail down what she needs to nail down to actually get into some WWE matches.
And we have now wrapped up the road to WrestleMania when it comes to our premium live events. We have a month of storytelling on TV, but outside of that, it looks pretty set now. The picture's coming clear, and despite all of the, I guess we would just say, behind the scenes, problems, injuries, things that couldn't be foreseen, we still need to clarify exactly if there's anything other than Roman and Cody, exactly what Rock is actually going to be doing at Mania. He will be something. It wasn't made clear by this show, but we did get our challengers, the ones we thought would be facing the various women and men's championship coming out of the chamber. We had a couple of things set up by the men's chamber that now look possible. So definitely a much clearer picture. And that was Elimination Chamber from Perth.
Indeed it was. Big finish time.
Let's talk big finish.
Let's do it.
Botch of the week.
So let me jump in here with a botch, and I am going to deviate from my standard.
It's usually me, but so you go ahead.
I'm going to deviate from my standard where when we review the pay-per-views, everything that. How many people is that going to upset? Oh yeah, The Rock's actually not here. Oh look, he's backstage or whatever, but or live via satellite from Tonga Taboo or wherever. But you don't want that either, right? But you needed something more, because it wasn't sloppy, it just was so vague. It was like, yeah, me and Cody are here and we're gonna say some things. And even Seth, I think, was off because Seth was very subdued in his dress. I mean, that's not that anime villain coming out. The only thing really outlandish about his outfit that day was the third eye on the glasses. But I don't know, it just didn't hit right for me. So I want to call that out as a botch this week. I don't know how you fix it, but I'm not in WWE creative either, so it's not my job to fix it. It's my job to get on the internet and rant about it.
Hey, I agree. Something was missing from that. And typically I pick my botch to be something I just generally don't like. I'm actually going to call my botch something that was actually a in-ring botch, and that was the Damian Priest up and run that I talked about earlier. I know that it's live, things happen.
Yeah.
I hate the whole "you effed up" chants and all that. These people are risking their well-being to entertain us. But once you're down, don't get up and run. Whatever you improvise, don't get back up to your feet and then just charge into your opponent. Finn could have pretended to slip, or he could have gone like, oh, now my partner's out of position, I'm going to climb down. There were a few other ways you could have gone other than going through with a spot that had already been messed up. So my botch of the week.
It could have worked so much better in like an actual match with R-Truth when that happens, because then, I mean, it's just another element of the comedy that R-Truth,
it was comedy.
It was, but
just unintentional.
Yeah.
Performance of the week, Doug.
So this is where I jump to another pay-per-view, for my performer of the week, because we tease this at the beginning of the show. EY is such a locker room leader. I think he was wasted, especially since the man was under contract for months on end, and we never even saw him on WWE TV when Triple H brought him back. But I guess Triple H brought him back. Then Vince came back, and but I mean, this promo that EY cuts is a amazing rally. Not only the troops, because you've read about it, and for folks who haven't seen or read this, I saw like some fan footage or somebody who was super close to it on their phone. But EY comes out, the rest of the roster comes out. Actually, I shouldn't say the rest of the roster. I don't know that because I'm not real familiar with the current TNA lineup. A majority of talents out there, though, and EY just talks about, hey, people move on, people, we lose people move on, but and he works it into a no surrender. People have been trying to get TNA to surrender for years and years. It was just such a great promo, a great rally of the troops, and not only just the people, the talent, but the troops talking about the audience too. That saying, it was basically the acknowledgement of D'Amore is gone. We're still around. We still got this. This isn't the first time somebody's tried to kill TNA.
That's true.
And it's like, this is great. This is great stuff. This is, and there are these legit pauses, not these like dramatic pauses for, okay, insert applause here or whatever, but where he's searching for the words at points, because he's getting a little tore up, because old school like me, you remember, Team Canada, EY, Scott D'Amore back in the day. Team Canada has been
go way back.
Yeah, D'Amore and Eric Young have been there a very, very long time. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out EY this week for that.
I am definitely going to go check it out because I read about it and it sounded amazing. And then, of course, seeing how much you loved it, I got to watch it. I don't think we ever mentioned it on this show, by the way, and we probably should have. But Eric Young asked, I think we mentioned he asked for his release from WWE, but in interviews after the fact of that release, it becomes really clear now that we know all we know. It was because of Vince McMahon and things that he didn't like behind the scenes. Now we know what some of those things possibly may have been. It just made my esteem for Eric Young, who I've always liked anyway. You talk about integrity, turning down the money that you can't get anywhere else, taking less money to stand up for your values. And then, like you said, watching him be that locker room leader. I'm going to go check it out. You all should definitely check it out too. Doug's performance of the week. My performance of the week, if you're watching this because you want to talk about Elimination Chamber, then you saw the performance from my performer of the week. Tiffy Stratton. It's Tiffy time, man. I was so impressed with what she did at Royal Rumble, where I thought that in the brief amount of time with a lot of women on stage at the same time, she managed to stand out then, and she really stood out even more so in the smaller crowd that is Elimination Chamber. The offense was crisp. The crowd was chanting Tiffy time. If that doesn't show that the NXT product has rebounded and is resonating with people, most of her work has been completely on NXT. These folks knew who she was. If you didn't know who she was, you knew by the end of that match who she was.
Absolutely.
Perfect example of someone who wins without actually needing to win, because it is pro wrestling and that part's predetermined. She was the winner of Elimination Chamber.
She was.
Tiffy time. I'm ready.
She definitely was.
Doug,
Absolutely. So
match of the week.
I'm going to bookend with what you just did there and say because of and only because of her. Actually, I shouldn't say only because of her. I thought it was a very entertaining. It was a very entertaining match, but the women's elimination chamber, amplified by the Tiffany Stratton performance, I'm calling that my match of the week.
I mean, it definitely had it over the men's match, and the men's match wasn't bad, but the women's match was definitely a cut above. I'm going though with the match that followed, what I thought would be the come down match, but the fast paced Judgment Day versus New Catch Republic match was the up and run from Damien aside. I can get it's okay to be able to give a match of the week and a botch.
I ain't judging.
It's the way that wrestling could work. You get back up and you move on and you save the match. And the match was definitely saved. It was surprising. I would never have guessed that to be my favorite match on the show going in, looking at the lineup, but it was. And definitely a match worth seeing if you didn't.
Mm-hmm. I think it was passable. If you watch us, you're good right now. If you just want to watch some wrestling, you're good to go watch it. You're not going to be coming away mad.
That's right. But yeah, if you've just watched us, you're probably okay to come back and watch us again.
Absolutely.
In a few days, because we got so much WWE content ahead as we start previewing Mania. You see on our schedule there, our next two shows are not WWE focused, because once these two shows are over with, straight on up through and past Mania, every week's edition will be focused on the big event itself. If you notice, February 29th, you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's not a Sunday. You are
That's
correct.
what I was just thinking. That's not a Sunday, Kevin. What's going on? That's in 4 days.
Doug, it's leap year. They're giving us an extra day, so we're taking advantage of that extra day, because we're not going to go on opposite of AEW's Revolution, which is what will be happening if we went live next Sunday. So instead, we're coming at you with a Thursday broadcast. And on that Thursday broadcast, we're going to get you ready for AEW Revolution. We're going to talk a little bit about who we think is going to win. And we're going to give a little appreciation to the Stinger, who is having his final match, reportedly his final match. You know how wrestling retirements go. But anyway, we're going to talk about all that on Thursday's show.
Cool.
And till then,
go watch some wrestling.
See ya.
See ya.